Hi, everybody. This is Marilyn. Do we have any audio for this? Yes, we do. Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is Marilyn, and it's time for the noon edition of Welcome to My World. And this is a wonderful Friday, and it is the 25th of May. So, we've had a little excitement this morning in these markets. They've been moving, and it's virtually across the board, everything. So it kind of looks like, we've got Trump and the North Korea guy. That's out there stirring up the activity pot. And then we've got the Saudis making noises that OPEC is going to increase production. They made a deal with, they think they made a deal. Who knows? They said they made a deal with the Russians and what have you to cap production to try and drive the price up on crude oil. So now they've decided might be time to increase production. So, of course, all the traders decided to take a bunch of profit off the table. And so now we've got crude oil selling off big time. It's come down. I think I checked once, it was about $2.50. That's a huge move down. And then we have indices that are just kind of chopping around. But we've got bonds going up, and the currencies have all moved. I don't know how many in here have been trading the currency spreads and Nadex during this time of day, but today they really moved. The Australian dollar moved big time, and so did the Canadian. The Canadian dollar is selling off in relationship to crude oil, which is about what you'd expect when it gets this big of a move. But the VIX is hanging in there. It can't seem to. I looked once. I checked it once, and it was a little over 13, but it's not holding that. It's trading 1287 right now. But anyway, we're headed into this 3-day weekend. So for all of you who want to know if and what time and all that kind of stuff, there are 2 websites that you need to have bookmarked. And the 2 websites that will have everything you want to know about what time everything opens and what time it closes and what's on and what's not and all that kind of stuff. One of them is the Nadex website, and it will have the holiday hours, trading hours, and all that. They do tend to stay closed over banking holidays in the U.S., so they're no doubt going to be closed on Monday, but it will give you an idea what time things are going to open. The other one is the CME Group website for everything that has to do with futures, which no matter what you're trading, the underlying chart markets that you're watching, with the exception of the Forex pairs, are the futures contracts. So the CME Group is the clearing place for the Globex, which is where all this stuff finally ends up. So they have that website's kind of difficult to use if you're not familiar with it. I'm not sure what they could do to make it simpler because they have a lot of information on there. But if you do a search up on the top and put holiday in there, it'll give you virtually every U.S. holiday and what time, what opens, and what closes. So the futures will be open for trading a little bit on Monday. Just keep in mind that the volume won't be there. So if you still have Monday devoted to trading, that's a really good day to do market replay. So when you shut down your computer this afternoon, be sure and not clear all the data out of it, because you'll have a real hard time with market replay. Wait until after you've loaded whatever it is you want to market replay, if that's what your plan is over the weekend. So anyway, this afternoon is likely to be pretty slow. We're headed into a 3-day weekend. For most people and the big boy traders, they may have placed a few trades. The crude oil traders were in business today, I can tell you that for sure. And the bond traders also were doing a landslide business this morning. But going into the afternoon, lunchtime on, they likely, unless something really happens, some big news event, current events type news, not economic news, they likely are headed out of town. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. And then just be sure on Monday evening, it's a good idea to check and see what's going to happen on Tuesday morning. And this weekend might be kind of interesting also. If everything gets wound up here to get this so-called summit that's supposed to be occurring between North Korea and the U.S. government, if there's some big positive news on that, it might make things get a little volatile for us on Tuesday. We might see some movement. But anyway, this is a good weekend to spend some time trying to catch up on some things that you maybe wanted to study. So, having said all that, then I thought we'd pick up for a few minutes anyway on continuing with our business plan or our planning book or whatever you want to call this. I think we started calling it a business plan, but it's turned into a little bit more than just a business plan. We're trying to create a resource book. You know how you can go to the forum, and if you want to know how some indicator works, or you want to know how a particular strategy you want to review or write yourself some specific notes on the rules or whatever, you can go to the forum and find about anything. Well, if we can create a resource book for each of us, and this is kind of a personal thing because we're all so different, but it will help us all, I think, stay focused and keep us on the beaten path here to turn our trading into a profitable business, because that's the ultimate goal for at least, I'm going to say 99% of us. Every once in a while you get somebody who comes to trading and they just want to learn how to trade. And they've already created, with that mindset, they've already created mission impossible. It's absolutely impossible to learn everything there is to know about trading. And any long-time trader, professional traders that are enormously successful will tell you, they just laugh. You're never going to learn all this. There's too much to it, and it changes. It constantly changes. So the first thing is to get a strategy, and Apex really excels at getting a strategy and a set of rules that you can learn. It might take you longer than you'd like. Takes most of us longer than we'd like, but it's there. And if you'll take the time, Marion made a really good point. I think it was yesterday in the chat about what she had discovered was if she just focused on one thing, all this other stuff is out there, just let it go by for the time being. Focused on that one thing and really learned that cold till you knew that inside out and backwards, upside down, at every way. Then you can build on that and add one more thing and one more thing. But if you try to learn too many things at once, that becomes an exercise in frustration, and you end up basically just kind of beating your head against the wall. So learning that stuff first, and then we've started this last fall. So there are a few of the posts. Sherry has very kindly, analysis paralysis. That is for darn sure. And boy, is that easy to get into with trading. But we started this last fall, and Sherry has very generously offered to, she's really good at reducing the chat down to some usable paragraphs that are easy to find. So I think it's under business plan. I'm going to write up last week's and get it to her, where we talked about what is the job. If you're going to be a professional trader, what's your job? What's the job description? And I hope we can all agree that it isn't trading. I think more people get into trouble thinking that what their job is if they're going to be a trader, then their job is to trade. That's about the last thing it is. So I will write up what I talked about, so we've got that that newer people can go back and look at. One of the things I wanted to mention last week, and I forgot to, was if we've got the job description and we know what our job is, then how do you know when you're doing your job? How do you know? What's the difference between a professional trader and an amateur trader? That's a real thoughty question. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with how profitable you are and all this other stuff you might think. Because I would say that the way you tell, and I've heard a lot of professional traders say this too, they all agree. The difference between a professional trader and an amateur trader is, with a professional trader, you or I or anybody else will never know what kind of a day they had. With an amateur trader, you can tell in a heartbeat what kind of a day they've had. Think about that. Because a professional trader can have the best day of their life and you will never know it. They can suffer the worst loss they've ever had and you will never know it. And it's because they've got the emotion totally under control. And that's the key, and that's where we're trying to get ourselves. We all get into trouble when we let that EQ, the emotional factor, overtake us. And getting rid of that's sure easier said than done. So Daryl says that this emotional, psychological stuff is 80% of trading. I tend to think it's higher than that. I think it's 90%. I think it could be 95%. I think the emotional thing of trading, once you've learned the system, is the biggest factor. It's the biggest difference between success and failure. So I've also heard, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard professional traders, people ask them, how do you do this? How did you get from beginner to a professional level? And they all say the same thing. And I am convinced that the single reason that people who are perfectly capable of learning the system, there's no problem. They're perfectly capable. Well, you don't see this very often. Crude oil just hit the -3 deviation level. I've seen it do this before, but not very often. Tamara, what they all say is, I've really learned a lot over the years, mostly about myself. And at first, to a beginner, that may sound really stupid because there's just so much stuff to learn, which I'm trying to point out to you, none of us are ever going to learn it all. There's just too much of it. And it changes constantly. But I am personally convinced that the people who could do this and they throw up their hands and give up, it's because they have gotten to the point where they have realized that the problem is between their right ear and their left ear, and they don't want to do the hard work to A, find it, and B, work through it. Because you have to admit that you are the problem, and then you have to develop strategies to change. Not a lot, but just little stuff, little things, because the little things add up and they start to build. So what I want to devote a lot of time over the next maybe few weeks, and everybody can kind of pitch in and add to this, because the more that we have more people involved, and we all find just little gems here and there. But one of the things I think that helps is in the whatever you call it section of your planning book, your psychological sector or mental or emotional or whatever you're calling that, um, is to have different pages for different things. One page, I would strongly suggest you just take that page and label it Daryl, and jot down the little Darylisms that you can think of. Like one of his great ones is you trade to trade well. The money will follow. Trading well. I mean, that's really very profound. It sounds kind of simple-minded, but get the focus off of making the money and making the ticks and all this other stuff. Trade well. When you trade well, everything else starts to fall in place. He has a bunch of little things. I've got some of my still got boxes and stuff that I haven't found a place to put, so I've got stuff stashed away. But and that's his 5% plan about how you use 5% of your trading capital, not what's in your account, your available trading capital. He said something really profound in Fort Worth. He says, I don't trade to build my trading account. Well, a lot of people think they have to have a trading account of $1 bazillion to make a good income. All you need in the trading account is just what you need to trade with. But he was talking about how what he trades, he doesn't trade to build that account. He trades to build his bank account. It's two different things. But of his trading capital, using 5% of whatever that number is divided by 6 trades, and however much that is, if you sit down and figure these kinds of things out, and how much do you want to leave in your trading account? So that gives you an idea of if you're transferring a percentage or an amount or whatever into your bank account, because it's the bank account that you're really trying to build. It's not the trading account. So it's bunches of little things like that. Then I would also have another page labeled Mark Douglas, and some of the just little gems that he has in his books. Jot those down and keep you'll encounter others from other books too. But those can be little mental triggers to remind you of things. We can't possibly, any of us, keep all this stuff in our head. So we have to have a place where we can go and kind of refresh our mentality from time to time. And if you don't know who Mark Douglas is, that brings me to another page that we need to name books. Mark Douglas wrote a number of books, and one of them is Trading in the Zone. Daryl says that is a mandatory book, that you own that book. And I would tell you to get that book. You can get used books and this and that and the next thing. I would get a new copy of that book, because that is a major reference. And you'll refer to it many, many times and reread it over the years many, many times. So that's kind of a hardcore book that you really need to have. There is another one that he wrote that is called The Disciplined Trader. And that has some little gems in it also. So he really has an ability. He had an ability. He has passed away about a year ago, I think. So, by all means, if you don't own those books, those are worth the investment. They will help you immeasurably. So anyway, the other thing is, if this is so heavily vested in the emotion and the psychology, then it strikes me that reading books about trading and reading books about investment and reading books about, I don't know, Warren Buffett or whoever, some guru, if that's only 5 or 10 or 15 or 20% of this whole thing, why don't we focus more of our reading time and our reading resources on what will help us?
We came
with
here for the friends.
80 to 90%
We got to know the friends of our friends.
of what this whole thing
And we
is.
found-
And that's this mental, emotional stuff. So I would keep a list of books. And I have a few of them here that I want. I mean, this is like for me. So you need to, we'll put this in the forum, but you need to have your own, and you'll run across other ones. For heaven's sakes, please share those with us, because if you found something very helpful in getting your focus and in building good habits, yeah, the disciplined trader. You know what, Chris? I think that's something we all need to read, because we all, and we're all guilty of this too. We go through stages where we do very well, and then all of a sudden the market kind of slaps you up the side of the head, and you're thinking, wait a second, I was doing really good. What in the world happened? And you have to stop and think. You stopped doing what was working, and in all likelihood, it was you lost the focus. So the disciplined trader, that I think that's a great one. I mentioned there are trading psychologists. They do all kinds of things. Some people, I've talked to people who have spent a lot of money with them and say it has helped them. Very expensive. Many of them have articles online. What they're doing is they're trying to drive traffic to their seminars and books and tapes and whatever, classes and what have you. But some of those articles that you can find online and some of the YouTube things they do are really helpful. And one of those is Randy Howell. And a lot of people say he's really helped them. He's the one I was telling you about that kind of triggered in my mind this business of, when we know stuff and we do it, we take a trade that we know we shouldn't have taken, but we do it anyway because we really want it to work out. And it's A, we didn't follow the rules, but B, he talks about how your brain hijacks your mind. And it's something that is very difficult to get past, and you can't do it unless you're aware of it. So that's number one. This is kind of like the 10-step drinking program or whatever. First, you have to admit you've got a problem. But he talks about how we get into a place where our physiological self, and the brain is kind of the computer center for that, gets flooded with hormones and chemical compounds and what have you that kind of set off triggers in the brain, and it literally can run away with your mind. So those kinds of things, I mean, that really helped me. There is a trading psychiatrist, and I found this book. I'm going to get this book. The name of this book, now, do you think this sounds like something we might need? The name of the book is The Mental Edge in Trading. It's by Jason Williams. And he's a Duke-trained psychiatrist. That he's young and just starting his career, and he's on a mission here to help us get to be better traders by getting this mental edge. His name is Jason Williams, MD. He's actually Larry Williams' son, for those of you who know who Larry Williams is. He's a very well-known trader, and he has a completely different style and what have you than we use, because the people that follow him are they have pretty deep pockets. You need to have a pretty considerable amount of capital under you, and he's a trend trader, so he puts on futures contracts and leaves them for weeks and sometimes months. So it's definitely a different animal. But the mental edge in trading. Stephen Covey wrote a really good book about the 7 habits of successful people. I think there's several of those 7 habits of something and something. But Stephen Covey books, they're short and easy to read, and they're not expensive. They're out in paperback, most of them, I think. Those are helpful. Some of the ones that you would think maybe don't have anything whatsoever to do with trading, but really and truly, it's about the mental discipline. And one of them is, I don't know the name of the author, but it's Unleash the Warrior Within. And so, the disciplined trader is Mark Douglas. The mental edge in trading is Jason Williams. Trade mindfully. That is a great one. Thank you, Chris. This is what we're trying to do here, is to get everybody who knows some of this stuff and has had some of these I'm writing this down, trade mindfully. Yes. Any help we can get with a lot of this stuff, we really need to take advantage of it, because I truly believe that the apex systems, all of them, are so incredibly accurate, and it's not a difficult thing to learn to use them. But the difficulty is this 80 or 90% of the mental stuff, and we all go through this. So Unleash the Warrior Within is one. Enhancing trader performance. I think we could all use that. Probably always will. There's another one that has nothing whatsoever to do with trading, and I don't have the author on this. I'm going to look up the authors for some of these. Every once in a while, I'll see an article or I'll run across something and I just jot it down. It's a book called Deep Survival. And you know, in trading, the best to start with, the absolute best to start with is trading in the zone. That is almost the trader's Bible. That guy nails it. And one of the things that he talks about is how you know you have a trading edge. It's your system. And believe you me, at Apex, we've got that. The trick, of course, is to keep yourself from doing stupid stuff. Yeah. Richard, I would also get a hard copy of it. The audio, a lot of people have both because they listen to him in the car. But those videos, YouTube videos, some of his seminars are even on YouTube, or portions of them are. But he is absolutely, that's where you start, trading in the zone. So now here's one. This is another one. The War of Art, Breaking Through the Blocks. You know, we all get these blocks, and it's kind of like a growing phase. If you've ever watched kids, you know, they hit levels, or if you've ever competed in any kind of sporting events, you hit levels where everything is clicking, and it's just working and working and working. And then all of a sudden you hit a plateau and you can't seem to get to the next level. So that's really what a lot of this stuff is. And yes, thank you, Doug. I've got that one written down too. The Art of War. That is something that you can spend a lot of time. If you're not familiar with that, people from a lot of different disciplines and professions use that. So, yes, and Unleash the Warrior Within. Not sure how you pronounce that name, but we'll get that in our list. So anyway, I want to wrap this up. Yes, I know my answer to finding the author is just to go to Amazon. But I want to wrap this up because I don't want it to go on and on and on. But anyway, you get the idea that within this section, if the mentality is so extremely important, then it strikes me that we all need to be spending a lot more time, energy, and effort on that specific sector. So I think as any of you run across books, or you have had experience with reading a book that really helped you, please do share those so we can get a very comprehensive list in our posting for the forum of some of the in the summertime. This is the best time of the year to be thinking about this, because the summertime tends to slow down in trading, and it goes a little slower because the volume isn't quite as much. So it's a great time while you're waiting for a pattern to set up that you want to take an entry on, to pull over one of these books and just read a couple of 3 pages and let the Ninja alarm system notify you when it's time to look up. So anyway, I think we're going to leave this right here for today. And yep, the greed, that's another thing. we need to Richard, one of the things that may help you with that is to use your ATM strategy, and on whatever it is, take your 2-to-1 risk reward. And if you take that reward, you know what? If it keeps going, you can always get in. You can always get back in the trade. There were some books in there, but Sherry, I'm not sure they've reorganized the forum so much, and there's a lot of stuff that yeah, Richard, you're going to have to spend some time with your charts to figure out what makes a sensible. It might be a patience thing also. So anyway, we will pick this up again next Friday, and I hope everybody. Yes. Oh my goodness, Aaron! If you're bringing the fish and the Malbec, I'll follow you anywhere. I don't know. I think you have to, for the Barbie, we've got to ask Gary. But he's probably cooking catfish. Anyway, have a wonderful, wonderful weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Be sure and stay safe. There's a lot of nutcases out there, so take care of yourselves and your families, and enjoy the weekend. And we'll all be back in here Tuesday for sure, maybe before. This has been my view in my world in Apex Land, brought to you by Apex Investing. I'll see you next week. Thanks.